Meet TAMIKA Tyson with TGC Impact.
Hi, my name is TAMIKA Tyson. I'm one of the co-founders of TGC Impact. TGC stands for Transformational Growth Capital, and we're a growth equity provider. We provide growth capital to companies, traditional companies at the growth stage to help them accelerate growth.
That is awesome. Thank you so very much for being here, TAMIKA. My name is Angela Thompson. I'm with ArKAngel Enterprises, LLC, and I have the unique pleasure and the unique opportunity to meet with TAMIKA Tyson. And we know each other because we're both members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And I will tell you firsthand that this woman, this women's history, as we're celebrating this month, is nothing short of amazing. She last spoke at one of our what we call Money Mondays, and she kind of imparted some incredible knowledge on anybody that aspires to even own a business, let alone how far they've gotten with their business. And so the service that you offer, just as your name implies, is transformational, and it helps people along the way. So I want to take a little deeper dive in terms of what does that look like? When we talk about growth capital, is it for those companies that are in the infant stages of what they're doing, the ideate stages, or is it more for those that are seasoned? When should folks come to you? And when they come to you, what can they expect?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would say this: we invest in companies that are too big to be small and too small to be big. You're beyond the concept stage. You're in the market. You've got some customers. You're making money, but now you are at a point where you're like, man, if I had an extra fill in the blank $2 million, I could really scale my business. I could buy that new facility that I need. I can hire the 10 people. Really, you're at that inflection point. And in some cases, you're making money and you could be a great lifestyle company, right? But if to go from being a small business to a large business, you're going to need that capital to bridge that gap. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to help bridge the gap between being small to being big. And when you think about capital and the capital continuum, there's you bootstrap it and you put your own money in to start the business. There's the friends and family. You call your friends and family and say, if you all can give me $2,000, I could buy this espresso machine, or I can buy this press machine, and I can start making some things. And then you kind of you would typically see on the you might have venture capital if it's a high growth company. And I think it's important to understand that venture is typically around high growth. So if your company is a great business but not a high growth, venture is probably not necessarily the right capital solution for you. Then you kind of have debt solutions, and that could range anything from a CDFI, which is a community development company that they're lending around kind of communities, so play space, or an SBA loan from maybe a regional bank or a community bank or even a large bank. And then you kind of got private equity, and that's kind of where the larger companies, you got kind of the middle market, at the lower middle market, which is 10 million in revenue a year, and probably at the low end 10 million in revenue a year. Then you kind of got the mid market that gets up to like 100 million, and then after that you're a large company. Typically you IPO, and you kind of go there. When you are in that $1 million to $10 million range, there are not a lot of capital providers in that space. So really, your source of capital typically is relying on debt, and there are not a lot of equity partners that are there. When equity partners go down market, they might go to $6-7 million. But if you are not in a high growth, it's not a tech, it's not a consumer product, and it's kind of taking off. So you're probably not a VC backable company. There's just not a lot of capital providers there. And so we really wanted to fill what we call the gap in the capital and be a bit of a bridge for those companies that go from being kind of that small company to the medium-sized company, and really focus on scale. So we focus on, if you do something really well, we want you to do that same thing repeatedly a lot of times. And so the capital we use helps you to do that.
It sounds like it's heavily dependent on relationships too. So, I would assume that any capital or any funds that become available is not just going to say, okay, here you go forth and be merry. There is some type of relationship that is built that watches you from the point of which those funds are turned over until you succeed in terms of using those funds. And when those funds, whatever the return happens to be. So if they need more funds after those funds are spent well and they see some type of return, they can come back. What does that relationship look like?
So it's all about collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
I will always tell people easy money is not long money.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is giving you some money and it's just a little too easy,
Yeah.
you might be concerned. So it is a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to partner with you. And I think when you get capital, you have to be thoughtful about who you take money from.
Right.
I think sometimes it's easy to be like, man, somebody's gonna give me some money, I'll take it. Well, do you want to be in business with that person?
Mm-hmm.
What's their reputation? What's your reputation? So it is a relationship driven business. And that's part of the reason why we, again, are looking to be a bridge. There are typically folks at their companies at that size, their heads down, pencils down, focusing on their business.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not always looking up and saying, what's the landscape? What's the market looking like? Who are the capital providers? So it does take time to develop the relationship, both, I think, from a capital provider providing the capital. But I think as a person, a business owner taking capital from someone, you need to also make sure that's someone you want to be in business with, because you will be in business with. And so to avoid sometimes the horror stories people hear, obviously on the internet, you only hear the kind of typically the bad stories. If you take the time on the front end and really focus on the relationship and building the relationship capital, that helps you to work through when you don't agree on how to address an issue, or when one person thinking we should go right, you think we should go left, and it helps you to actually manage that decision making based on that relationship. So relationships are extremely important, and I think we spend a lot of time when we're looking at an investment just with the owner, getting to know them. I always ask this question: would you fire your niece? Right? Because sometimes in companies, the best thing they can do is to maybe fire their niece, right? But that's also a hard decision to make. I always ask that question just to see, will the owner make that tough call? The niece isn't doing a good job,
right?
Or do we
Or their child, right?
Or their child, right?
Or their child.
He owns his own business. He fired his son and said he could never come back to work here again. Right?
Poor son.
Apparently the son wasn't performing.
That is funny.
But that's what business, being in business, it's real money. And so if, you sometimes, unfortunately, you wish you could hire everyone and every employee was a great fit, but that is not. And sometimes that person's related to you. And so it's really for me to see how people process that decision. Because that's what sometimes in life, they're tough decisions. I want to kind of have an idea how they manage through and work through those decisions. So yeah, it is about the relationship.
I like that. A lot of people that are tuned in now, some of these terms that we're talking about are very new. So maybe we should break them down just a little bit. And then we'll talk about those companies that haven't yet risen to the point where they would come to you for funds and give them some advice on what they can do. Those that are really just starting out beyond, maybe even at the concept stage, perhaps beyond the concept stage, they're in business, but they're so accustomed to, just pouring into the business themselves. Strategically, they're not to that point where they're thinking about growth potential and what could happen if, say, they, hire more people or hire more consultants, just build, according to whatever their vision happens to be. So let's start with terms like venture capital, venture capitalist, capital providers. What are we talking about in that particular round?
Well, let's talk about what capital is. Capital is typically, there are two sources. It could be internally generated. And when I say it's internally, you sell a product for $100, it costs you $50 to make, you have $50 profit, and then over time you did that 10 times, so now that 50 is 500. That's capital, right? It's internally generated. But it could be externally generated, meaning I needed $1,000 to start my business, right? And I don't have $1,000. So I can go to a capital provider and say, will you give me $1,000? Capital providers, I'm gonna give you a simple definition. You need $1,000 to run your business, to start your business. I can get equity, and in exchange for that, I'll say, I will give you $1,000 for your business, but I want to own 50% of your business. That could be a venture capitalist, it could be someone in private equity, it could be friends and family. But in exchange for the money or capital, they want a portion of your business. They're going to own it. Then there's a debt provider that provides capital as well, like a bank, where they'll say, I will give you this $1,000 and I'll have you pay me back $100 a month and over the next 12 months. Yeah, now you're probably saying, well, Tamika, that's more than $1,000. Well, they're charging you interest. And so that includes the interest, right? You still own your business, but you owe them a little bit more real time for them to provide you that. Now, one person will say, well, then why would I ever give away any of the equity in my business, right? Because I don't own it 100%. Hopefully, if you get a great capital provider in there, they're going to help you accelerate growth, right? They'll have relationships, they'll have processes, they'll have systems. So they'll bring you more than just a check. So everyone thinks it's a Shark Tank. Shark Tank is kind of that equity piece. I'll give you $1,000. I want this percentage of your company, and I'm going to help you accelerate growth. Whereas on the lending side, I'll give you the money. You still have to be responsible for that growth.
That is absolutely perfect, because what it tells everybody is that you have to be strategic. You have to know where your business is going. And so when you decide that you want to go one path or the other, you have to kind of think ahead about what you want your company to look like in the future and what you're willing to do yourself, right? What you want willing to pour into it. Giving up equity, giving up shares is not a bad thing, but you just have to really understand what, I'm not even going to call it risk. To some, it may be risk, but
your goals. What are
your goals? Absolutely.
I might be really good at something, and I see within my business, wow, here's something I'm not good at. And so, man, if I can bring in capital from someone who's really good at that, I can benefit from that, right? So that might be, there's value in that exchange beyond just a check, right? Because as the business grows, we both benefit from the growth. Banks are going to, they're going to be great partners. But what happens is, because their return is limited based on principal and interest, they may do an introduction for you. They're not going to necessarily roll up their sleeves if you need someone to roll up their sleeves and jump in and help. And so that is kind of somewhat, and this, I'm simplifying this by all means, but that is somewhat of the difference. The great capital provider is going to come in, they're going to provide you capital, but they're also going to be there to help you manage through, oh man, we had a difficult business decision. They're going to be able to help you through that. Whereas the debt provider will be, here's what we suggest, but I can only give you so much guidance because I have responsibility.
How does this all differ from angel investors?
So angel investors are a type of equity investor, right? So they're coming in early on, probably when you still have a concept. They believe in you, and typically they may believe in the idea. So I would put them in kind of the venture category, because it's an equity investment.
I love that. What advice do you have for folks that are really at the beginning? According to, when I say beginning, they've done some work, but they'll have hundreds and thousands of dollars yet that they've earned in revenue annually. What advice do you have for them in terms of how to seek funds, where to seek funds, and ways in which they should strategically gravitate towards getting funds to make sure that their business lives on in perpetuity?
One, you have to build a business that can live on in perpetuity. And I will tell you, a lot of times that's not what people build. So I'll start that. I'm glad you said that. I think, you can build a lifestyle business and have a great business. And when you say lifestyle, it will probably end when the owner ends the business, right? Or you can have build a business that someone else that you grow it to a certain point, and someone said, man, I like where you are. I think my skill sets will take it to a next level, and can I buy it from you, right? So then you can start transferring it, from one owner to the next, right? But you build those two businesses differently typically. And so I would say, what are your goals?
What are your goals?
Is your goal to generate just income for you? Is your goal to generate a valuable asset that could be sold or create generational wealth? So I would actually start with, what are your goals? And I don't think people really think about it. They're like, oh, I'm going to make, every time someone's like, hey, I'm going to make $10 million this year, I've sold nothing, but I don't even believe that. Right? So Although I believe that when you're starting a business, you must believe that. I don't believe it. And so now show me where the proof is that your ability to do that. Start with your goals. I think the second thing is, do you have a plan?
Mm-hmm.
And build enough flexibility in the plan that you don't need everything to go right for the plan to work. Right?
Great advice.
Like if you need to have so many conditions
Mm-hmm.
and all of them to happen to be successful, that's probably not a great plan. You want to have a plan, and maybe you need 50% of things to go right to make it work. Right? So build enough flexibility into your business plan that something that is repeatable in the process. Make sure you've written it down. One, it's an asset, right, to the business. You have a process. Somebody else that might want to do something similar say, hey, I'll buy your business. And the asset for the business is the process. Business owners understand that the ultimate goal of your business is to make money. Mm-hmm. But making money isn't just revenue. It's the bottom line. Measure your success based on a similarly situated company. Here's the reality. If you have a really great idea, someone else is going to do it too. Right. Just be better.
Just be better.
Just be better. And so, but measure yourself based on who your competitors actually are, not who you want them to be.
So what inspired you to start Transformational Growth Capital?
I felt like there were a lot of businesses and a lot of business owners that were getting left or were kind of in that gap. Okay. Right. They didn't necessarily know where to get the capital. Mm-hmm. They weren't getting the right type of capital. And because they were too small, the bigger players loved their business, but they just were too small. And so we felt like we could, we thought it would be transformational, to invest in those companies who really were at that inflection point. They'd have early success, they got some traction. And we thought we can make a difference in doing that. Like we can add value to the business and to the kind of the communities as well. We like businesses that have a job story, and we think about workforce as well. So it's not just about creating the business and the company, but how do we create jobs? I would say many of our businesses, and when I say ours, I'm going to say diverse, minority-owned companies, don't have employees. Right. They're solopreneur companies. If we're going to change our wealth conversation in our community, we need to be building bigger companies. We need to, and part of that is building and having companies with employees. And that starts to transform our communities as well. So really it kind of started from, we always talk about the lack of access to capital for segments of the market. And we said, what if we did something crazy about providing capital to that segment of the market? And that's kind of how we started to think about our businesses. Let's invest where others aren't, where there's a lot of opportunity for growth. And then let's kind of bring in our networks and kind of some mentorship and some strategic guidance to actually help them get to the next level.
I am so proud of you. I am so incredibly proud of you. Talk a little bit about your reach, the people that you work with that are investing in these companies, and how you all came to form the network that you have.
Well, me and my business partner, Emily, we both came from different parts of the market. So she came from the institutional side, I came from the corporate side, and we brought in kind of what we like to say a tops down and bottoms up approach, where we kind of know people who would like to invest. We knew companies in the market that needed capital. And then I kind of coming from the corporate side, actually having to execute the strategy, right? Because there's the plan, and then there's executing the plan, and then there's plan for the plan, right? And so we felt like we just had the experience in our networks that touched all three, right? Folks who could help fund the plan, folks who can execute the plan, and folks to help create the plan and work the plan. And so we really said, okay, what if we brought all those pieces together? What could we do if we did that? But it really kind of started from saying, instead of talking about the lack of access to capital, what can we do to actually provide some capital? And how do we use our experience, our shared experience, to make that happen and make it meaningful?
I love that. What is the process for companies that want to reach out and to find out if there's an opportunity to work with you?
So you can go to our website. It's tgcimpact.com. I would say if they're going to do that, set themselves up for success. And I would say this is for us or anyone else. who are you? What does your business do? Give us kind of some, a little bit of information there. How much money have you, revenue have you generated to date? What kind of earnings? What kind of markets? What are who is your customer, right? Just give us enough so that we can see the opportunity and say, okay, this is something we think is a good fit for us or not. I think sometimes people don't give enough detail, and then they don't get the call back, they don't hear, but no one really understood what the business was. And so I just would say, make sure in the email or in the note, you kind of give us enough that we know who you are. And I would tell them to reference this so I'll know how they heard about us. So yeah, reference your podcast in there.
I love that. Then what type of businesses are you guys funding? Is it more service-based? Is it more product-based, or both?
I would tell you this stuff, and we joke about this, most unsexy things. We like manufacturing. We like distribution. We like logistics. We like business services. We like infrastructure. We like, I would say, things that are a part of the supply chain continuum. I often joke about, and during COVID, we learned that toilet paper didn't come from the grocery store, right? And so, but no one knew that or cared about that until it went at the store, right? So we won't invest in the raw material of the store, but we would invest in the manufacturing, the logistics, the transportation. We would invest in some of the supply chain related components of it.
Talk about some of your greatest success stories. So someone came to you and they needed some money and they were at point A. You funded them and now they are in a different place. You don't have to name the company if you can't, but talk about the success of that exchange.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of a company now. When we started investing in them, they were making money when we met them. They were good. They had a great business, but they really needed some capital to scale their business. And so we were able to provide them some capital. We really saw significant growth in kind of their revenue numbers, and now the company is probably almost doubling the revenue that they had. So capital can, but I want to be honest, capital can accelerate growth when it's the right business, the right team,
in the right time.
And the right time, right? And so, because I think everyone always just thinks, if I got the capital, it will solve all my problems.
Money can also be the root of all evil.
It can also cause problems, right? And so, I actually am thinking about someone who I just saw yesterday. He was telling me the story about how he went to the bank to get like this loan, and it was for his business. They told him no. When he evaluated and looked back, what he'd asked for wasn't really what he needed. Had he gotten all of that capital, he would have made different decisions that might not have been best for his business. Right. And so, I think, it's easy for us all to say, well, hey, we all think we're arrogant enough to be like, I'm the reason, right? But we're all parts of a puzzle. And so we're part of the puzzle, and we just like to be a part of the journey and part of the story as the companies really kind of grow and scale. We've been thinking about, we've been talking a lot about putting something together for companies to help them figure out what the right capital solution is for where they are in their business. So stay tuned, because we recognize that a lot of people just don't know where to go. They don't know what's the right kind of capital, where based on the current stage of their business. What you need from zero to the $500,000 mark is not what you need from the 5,000 to the million. And it's really hard to get to that million. Then what you need from that million to 10 is different. And that's not only capital, but it's also skill set. So I would say sometimes business owners also, once they hit a certain level of growth, they have to look at themselves and their team and say, okay, what are we going to do next there?
Incredibly powerful, everything that you shared.
There is no magic formula. Like, there are businesses that you're like, man, that's actually really successful. Like, who knew? And then there's some businesses that should be doing well and they're not. And there are a whole host of reasons why. I think oftentimes people will tell new business owners, like, if you're trying to start a company, try something, fail fast, fail forward, try it. If it
I
doesn't
think
work
that's the
out,
key too. People
yeah,
have to learn from their lessons. It's about pivoting. It's about being able to recover from wherever you are, and you seed your own growth. You seed your own journey. And so what you experience from here to whenever you got to have to sit still long enough to hear and to take heed of where your journey is taking you, and don't measure it by whoever's doing something similar or what your friends are doing or
run
all these other
your,
folks.
I
Your
always
journey is your journey.
run your race, right?
Run your race.
I would also say, as Black women, ask for help.
Hmm.
And I'm going to say that again, ask for help,
Hmm.
because we don't always do that. And,
Hmm.
and I think oftentimes people are willing to help you. So,
Yeah.
and or not, you know what I mean? And I think that's okay, right? You do the ask, and you let, the universe, God, whoever you talk to, he has a role. So I think
Hmm.
that's the thing. You do your part, he does his, and then
Right.
you have
It's
outcomes.
timing, right? I truly, and grace, grace from above and grace within yourself. And, you could be sitting on something for a while, longer than what you expected, but just don't give up. Just know that that seed is always there, and you just have to keep sowing.
The measure of success might not be what you think the measure is.
Hmm.
Right. So
Hmm.
let's just say you start a business and it just doesn't go the way you thought it would go. But you learned a lot.
Hmm.
You got some new skills
Hmm.
along the way. You've met new people along the way. And so you could walk away and say, man, I got this piece. Oh, I didn't have that before.
Hmm.
I learned this. And oh, I met these 20 people. Success is not always this business was a successful one. It's that I am richer in terms of knowledge and hopefully in terms of wealth as well as a
Hmm.
result of the pursuit. And so now I can use this knowledge, this wealth or whatever to do something different.
I love that.
Or I mean, I'm going to probably be controversial, or just go work for someone else. We've been
You,
telling everybody they got to work for themselves. They got to have a
hmm
so
Companies need employees, right? Good
companies and
employees and
employees, right?
managers.
Like, and so, and now you're a better employee because you're going to look at the business and you're going to do the work from a different lens. And and so when the
Hmm.
owner makes a decision, you'll be like, well, I mean, I get it. Like if cash flow is this and he's made payroll, you'll understand maybe those decisions a little bit more having started to run your own business. And so,
Or be a consultant, right? Maybe you don't want, or, for whatever financial tax reasons you have, you can't work for somebody, you need the 1099, be a consultant.
you define the win.
Hmm.
That's what I would tell anyone, whether you're in business or you're working for someone.
Yes,
You define the win, and you don't have to define the win based on what anyone else says, social
absolutely.
media. You define the win.
Yeah.
Not always well, I didn't grow up with this, I didn't grow up with that. Let's take that mindset out and say, let's believe that we fundamentally can do anything anyone else can do.
I think that's key. You have to expect it, right? You can't just say, okay, I'm just going to get this vision. You got to kind of see it. You have to own it. You got to believe that it's going to come to fruition. And I think things will just kind of fall in line. Not magically. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but I think you've got to really see yourself succeeding. You just cannot tiptoe through it. Where are you located? Transformational Growth Capital. Where is it located?
So we are in Houston, Texas, and
Okay.
Vienna, Virginia. And then if you ever see me out in the world, in the wild, tell me about your business. Tell everybody, I'll give anyone 15 minutes.
Okay.
Um, and in that I might be able to do something, or maybe I can give you some feedback. Feedback is
Feedback is incredibly helpful.
so
I love it. Everyone, meet my friend and now yours, Miss Tamika Tyson. Tamika, I love you so much. This is awesome. You've given us so many amazing nuggets. I'm so incredibly proud of you. You are beautiful inside and out.